Elliot Jackson says, "Good morning, brother. Morning question. Why do you think it's so hard for people to invest in themselves, yet so easy to accept the idea of 40 years of working for someone else to live their dream?" I'm going to address that specifically, right? And then we're going to jump into the show. Now, the biggest reason why it's much easier for people to work a regular job, and a lot of times you say for someone else, but they're not working it for someone else. Let me give people a little bit of credit. It doesn't matter what it is that you do. It doesn't matter if you're sweeping the floors or you're in the C-suite working for whatever corporation that you work for. They're not working for someone else. They're working for themselves. All of us are trading in our time, right? Because time is the most valuable asset. Now, let me break this equation down for you, especially for those of you that are new to the Millionaire Morning Show, right? The way that you then actually calculate the time that you have or the amount of money that it costs you to do anything is, for all of my bag chasers and anybody that's been here for an extended period of time, you know that the calculation is 8,760. 876 with a zero on front. 876 with a zero on front, right? 8,760 is the amount of hours in the year, right? And so when you evaluate how much your time is worth, you don't go by how much they pay you on your job, because you also have to leave your job, you have to sleep, you have to go and take care of business, you have sex, you play video games, you do all of these different things on a regular basis, right? And what we like to do is, in order to make ourselves feel good, we give ourselves a dollar value based off of how much we make per hour when we're on the job or when they're paying us at the job. But the reality is that you have a finite amount of time on this earth. So the way that you base how much your time is worth is based off of how many hours in a year, and you divide that into the amount of money that you make and generate from all revenue sources before taxes come out. And you have to do it before taxes because some of us actually understand how to maximize the amount of money that we make prior to giving our money over to the federal government. That's a whole nother conversation, right? But if you're breaking this equation down and you really, really looking at it, that means if you make $100,000 per year, and I might be off a few cents, that means that your time is worth the equivalent of about $11.60 an hour. That means if you go back and you look at that movie Time with Justin Timberlake, it was a great movie. The concept of the movie was awesome. How poor people operated versus how rich people operated. I love that movie Time with Justin Timberlake, right? Because it showed you that people that had resources, they walked a little bit differently. They had some more confidence. They didn't stress out a little bit more. It also showed you that it wasn't a race war, but it was a class war. Go and watch that movie Time with Justin Timberlake. It's an awesome movie, right? But everybody, and they had the amount of time on their arm or on their hand. I forgot, I haven't watched the movie in a long time. And once you hit a certain age, that time started ticking down. And when you went to work, they gave you more time. The reality is that when you look at the amount of money that we make and the amount of resources that we have, when you go into work every day, you're essentially trading in your time for resources. Meaning that if it takes you, let's say you make $25 an hour, let's just use a flat number, right? And your meal costs you $25. That means that if you start to calculate how much time it costs you in order to then eat that meal or buy that meal, then that means that that meal costs you an hour of your life, not an hour of your time. Remember, we have a finite amount of time on this earth, so none of us knows what the expiration date is, but everybody knows that we're going to die someday. And then the time that you use or you utilize to get more resources, spend with other people, fuck up, you go to jail for an extended period of it, whatever it is, you traded in your time for that resource, and how much it cost you, there's a real number attached to it, because that's how universally we're able to communicate, is through mathematics. That's why mathematics is so important, especially to the majority of the people that don't even understand why they need to embrace mathematics, because then you can start to substantiate exactly how much it's costing you to spend time with people that don't have any value in your life. So when you standing on a corner, or you sitting here arguing back and forth with people that don't add any value to you, or when you spending it with women that don't ever even really care for you, Or let's say you're a person of resources and you decide to spend a bunch of money on dinner. Remember, if that dinner costs $200, let's say you took her to Ruth Chris, you took her to Benny Han. You know the little girls with the baby hairs, they like Benny Han, right? Let's say you took her to Benny Han and Ruth Chris and y'all had drinks or whatever. Let's say you spent $200 on dinner. Let's say you make the equivalent of 25. Let's say you make $40 an hour. You make $40 an hour. Cool. That means it costs you 5 hours of your life to then trade in another 2 hours of your life to then take her out to dinner. If you make $40 an hour on your job. But let's say you make $100,000 a year, right? If that dinner costs $200 and your time is really worth $11.60 an hour, because $100,000 a year is the equivalent of about $11.60 an hour, or $11.60 an hour. That means it took you 19 hours of your life. Remember this, and this will give you a completely different perspective. It took you about 18 to 19 hours of your life to then entertain her. And then it took you another 2 hours to actually do it. So the cost of that dinner was really about 22 to 23 hours. Let's just say you taking this woman out, it cost you a whole day of your life. If your time, do the calculations, 8,760 hours in a year, how much you make per year, let's say you a six-figure man, that means it took you a day of your life. You traded in a day of your life to take her out to dinner to Ruth Chris or Benny Han. It changes the whole perspective. That's why I say we over at the Bag Chasers and the Patreon members, we can look at life differently. We look at marriage differently. We look at everything from a business perspective because it can be broken down mathematically as to how it is that you're spending your time around people that don't value you. So let's just say you go over there and you buy her a drink, right? And her drink costs $11.60. She drinking something that's not really that big of a deal. Because she may be drinking Louis XIII, right? Or she may be drinking Wolf of Reserve. If her drink costs $11.60 an hour, or $11.60, and that ain't even including tip, that would mean that you traded in an hour of your life in order to be able to buy her a drink. Changes everything, doesn't it? Changes everything, does it? Let's break it back down. Let's say you start to become more valuable. Let's say you become a bag chaser. Let's say you start making a whole lot of money, right? Let's say you make the equivalent of $500,000 a year. Let's do the math, right? If you make $500,000 a year, then that means your time will be worth the equivalent of 6 times 5. Your time is worth $58 an hour. If you make $500,000 a year, your time is worth $58 an hour, right? Now, let's say your time is worth $58 an hour. That means when you sleeping, when you wake, when you going to chase a bag, when you go to work, when you spending time with your wife, whatever it is, right? Now, you sitting and you chilling in the hood, hanging around dudes that don't give a fuck about you. Is it worth $58 for an hour of it, of spending their time around them? Is it worth $58? Let's say you out here playing video games, right? Because the way that people look at their time when you have resources is much different than when you don't give a fuck and you won't make that much money. Let's say you make $500,000 a year, which costs you the equivalent of $58 an hour, right? And you won't Call of Duty. Now, everybody know that when you play video games, that time just goes by. A clan match, whatever. You sit there and you on there for 5 hours straight. Some dudes is putting in 8-hour shifts. Let's multiply it times 8. That means that if you made $500,000 a year, then it cost you $464 to put in a shift and playing video games, but you got no return on your money. Think about that for a minute. That's why I don't waste time doing stuff with people that I don't give a fuck about. That's why it's so important for me to surround myself with the right people. That's why when you do coaching calls, I charge my corporate clients more than $500 an hour, because that's how we charge when it comes to, looking at things from a business perspective. But I don't charge you that much, right? And I even had to cut off the amount of people that I'm taking in for the next couple months, because I have to make sure that you substantiate my time. I'm not just going to give it to you for free when I'm worth this amount of money. I'm not going to charge you what I charge my corporate clients, but at the same time, you're going to have to respect my time, because I don't make money from having a conversation with you. But at the same time, when you extract in millions of dollars worth of value, at the very least, you can respect my time. So the rate that you get is based off of that number. It's not based off of how much money I would charge my corporate clients. It's not based off of profitability. It's based off of the fact that I have a finite amount of time. I have a real calculation of what an hour of my time is worth in real life. And I have to make sure that I'm using it and utilizing it properly around the people that actually value what it is that I do. Otherwise, I could be spending it going to get another bag. I could be spending it with my daughter. I could be spending it with my wife. I don't know what my expiration date is. Right? And so to come back to your question, Elliot, why do people, or why would they rather spend time just working regularly in order versus actually reinvesting in themselves, is because they don't understand the concept of valuing their time. They don't understand what it takes in order to increase the value of their time. They don't understand that if you spending time around him, then you actually losing your life. You're losing the most precious thing that you have in your life because of your inability to really value who it is that you are. You don't understand that you a king. If you understood that you was a king, then you would do king shit, right? You would have a longer term view towards what it took in order to be successful, because you understood. See, let me tell you the difference between a doctor and a janitor. Now, there's nothing wrong with a janitor, right? But the difference in the thinking between the two is vast. The difference in thinking between those that champion pro-black and black culture versus people that understand that it's a class war, not a cultural war, is vast, right? And the difference is the doctor is willing to endure long enough to get to the end because they understand that the bag is significantly greater on the end, which they can then compound the results of what life is supposed to be like when it comes to living on a. They're willing to sacrifice this 8 years right here in order to live the rest of their life like a king, right? Versus the person that's just want to go to work to get a paycheck, and then they're going to ask for forgiveness from Biden for student loans that may or may not come. They don't value their time as much because the only thing that they're trying to do is look at what's directly in front of them instead of having a foresight of what it takes in order to be successful long term. The beautiful thing for you, though, is, let's break it down. The beautiful thing for you, though, is because you're in an elite group of people that hear this message, that is a part of the Bag Chasers, that is a part of the Patreon, that actually move in a direction that you're supposed to go in with a group of people that value your time. The Bible says there will always be poor among us. And this actually goes straight into what it is that we're going to talk about today with regard to Trump, with regard to Jonathan Majors, so on and so forth, right? I'm reading y'all super chat shortly. The Bible said that there's always going to be poor among us. There's hell enlargeth itself, which means that the majority, the overwhelming majority of people will not be successful. They will go to hell. They will just be regular, when in reality, regular was created in order to make you feel good about your circumstances, because even God said, I'd rather you be hot or cold, but I spit lukewarm out of my mouth. He don't want nobody in the middle. He don't want nobody on the fence. He either wants you to be yay or nay. You better off being nay than you are being in the middle, because that means that you have no true understanding of where you at in this whole spectrum of life. You don't understand that you are on the tail end or on the bottom end, and they just trying to make you feel good because you're the best of the last. Being in the middle is the best of the last. This is my mentality. This is what I've always been taught. You just the first loser. Being in the middle, although we may respect them because they handle our food and they sweep our floors and they lay our roofs, but you are the best of the last. You are the first loser. You are the first person to come into the loser's bracket to cross that line. Because winners understand that it ain't no middle. It ain't no participation trophies. It ain't no ha ha ha, I love you. It's either you won or you lost. Either you going to hell or you going to heaven. And the minute that you understand that, that means that you're going to start valuing your time differently. You're going to start spending it around people that actually value it differently. You're not going to do anything that does not add value into your life. You're not going to be around people that don't add value into your life. You're not going to travel into places that then put you in danger. You're not going to spend your time around women that don't actually that are not wives. You're not going to be busting down chicks just randomly. You're going to start valuing your time differently. And then the people that surround you are going to add value into it, and then vice versa. And that's the difference between people that rather work the 40 for the rest of their life just so they can retire and die at the end of it versus the people that actually value their time. That's the difference. That's the difference. I don't know what I'm going to say today. I don't know who's going to ask me a question or who's going to super chat. And the only thing I can tell you is the truth. I'm not trying to be here to make you feel good. I'm not trying to have you be the first loser. I'm trying to have you be a winner. Yes, you can work your 40, 50 years, retire. Retirement age is going to continue to go up. You can retire at 72 and then die at 74. You can work your whole life to live 2 years, or you can sacrifice the first 10 in order to live the rest of your life the way you want to. You make the decision. You make the decision. You can choose not to wear rubber now and then live with HIV and AIDS and hope that they come up with a cure for the rest of your life, or you can make the decision to get married and do it the right way and then be able to raise your kids because your unborn kids actually need you to do the thing that's in their best interest. You can fly coach or you can fly first class. It's a difference. Or you can fly Delta One. It's a huge difference, right? When we pay this type of money for our flights, we're not paying because we give a fuck about the money that come along with it. It's because we was able to buy our time back, and we understand that the comforts and the creature comforts and the ability for us to be working more efficiently actually adds more value into our life long term with regard to how it is that we value our time. We look at it differently. Rewind the stream. Rewind the stream. We're not going to re-break it down. Rewind the stream. We're not going to re-break. It ain't nobody doing what we do on the Millionaire Morning Show. They don't teach you this over at Dave Ramsey. Shout out to Dave Ramsey and the Baby Steps. He helped a lot of y'all get out of debt, baby steps, all of that other type of stuff, save $1,000. That's cool. That's cute. This is a whole nother league. This is a whole nother level that we talking about. We talking about everything that we do is meaningful on this earth. Shout out to Anthony O'Neill. They don't talk like us over there. We see students. We break it down from a C student's perspective so that you can actually use it and apply it to your life, and then you can go to that next level. We do it differently over. Don't nobody do what we do on the Millionaire Morning Show. There is no show on regular TV or YouTube that talk the way that we talk it.